You can use gold and silver to beat the system and beat the banks. You can be your own bank. You could maybe use bits of gold to pay for everything if the world collapsed. Well, I hate to be the one that bursts your bubble with a contrarian opinion, but no, I don't really think that's very possible or likely, certainly in a modern world. It's more likely, quite honestly, that if a currency like the dollar collapsed, that we would end up seeing Bitcoin or some other digital currency taking the fore as the world's reserve currency. But I'm also of the mind that I don't think the dollar will ever collapse. And that's a contrarian opinion for the world of gold and silver, with a lot of people in this world of silver and gold feeling that it's the only way to separate their finances from the government. So is that practical? Let's find out. Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a very warm welcome to you all joining me for another Precious Metal Ramble, where we have down-to-earth discussions about all things precious and shiny. And I want to revisit a topic today which has long been the view of a lot of gold and silver stackers, which is that you can beat the system. You can get away from the financial institutions and the banks with gold and silver. I'm here to give a contrarian opinion. What I like to say in life is, if you watch something on YouTube or if you read something online that sounds great and you like that idea and it's a great ethos to live by, then go and find someone somewhere that's saying the opposite. Have a listen to both sides of an argument and then make up your mind. And that's what we aim to do today, to really say to you that actually gold and silver are pretty poor for escaping that financial situation. Now I've got my little treasure chest here. I say little treasure chest. There's quite a lot of beautiful old constitutional US silver here, because this stuff used to be the real money. And that's kind of the crux of the argument here, that gold and silver are not ever going to be used as real cash again. The days of cash are dying, and it will go completely one day. We won't have cash in society. I firmly believe that. We'll still have gold and silver because those are separate from cash, but can they replace cash? Can they replace everything else in this modern world? And I'm afraid to tell you that my argument to you is going to be a firm no, they won't. And so the idea that you would be able to escape the world of banking and the banking situations in this world by just only using gold and silver is, I'm afraid, a little bit of a fallacy. And it's one of these kind of rhetorics that is used often, more so I'd say in the US than the UK, but there is a huge contingent of that kind of element here in the UK as well, of people who will be wanting to beat that system, be their own bank. And I just don't buy it. I'm afraid I really don't buy it. I don't think it's likely. I don't think it's practical. And I'll talk a little bit why in this video. So let me know your thoughts and opinions on this as we go throughout the video. It would be great to get your thoughts on it. So comment down below. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, then please subscribe. Also, let me know what you like best. Do you like old school constitutional silver like this? There's not just constitutional in here, we've got other bits and bobs too. Or do you like your modern bullion? Your big bullion bars, your coins, your modern 999 fines, etc. Let me know. So the crux of this, I think, is down to a little bit of an ethos of how people look at the world. And I do feel that and I'm generalizing here, I will agree and admit that I am generalizing, but your average gold and silver stacker, somebody who watches YouTube videos about stacking and buying gold and silver, your average stacker is more inclined to be anti-establishment, or at least not necessarily anti-full establishment, but a bit more wary about their money. Maybe you've only just got started. Like me, when I got started with gold and silver, I just bought it because I thought I'll buy some gold. Buy some silver actually was the first thing I bought. Eventually I turned to gold, but I'll buy the metals now and I'll hold them and I'll sell them and I'll make some money. That's great for me. It's brilliant. But as I fell down the YouTube rabbit hole, and after numerous years of doing what I do, I suddenly found myself really getting down this rhetoric of, well, actually having gold and silver does take money out of that monetary system, and there have been benefits from a financial perspective for me for that. But is it something that I'm going to rely on if the world goes to pot, or if I need to stay off the radar, for example? And the honest answer is no. There are benefits to holding gold and silver, and I have, as you can see, a pile of silver here, which I think is really good to have. But is it likely to be needed for me to keep myself off the radar? Am I going to go down to the pub and try and beat the system by selling my silver for cash and using the cash? The answer is no. I mean, who's got time in their life to do that now? And I'm afraid to say that with the world of Big Brother and the world where cash is not becoming that easy and practical to use, it's gonna get harder, and I'm afraid to tell you that they are gonna find out at some point. Now, I had a very interesting conversation with a gentleman the other day who was inquiring through our selling service about potentially selling some gold bars. He had a number of 100-gram gold bars. And he asked me, I mean, first of all, I have to be exceptionally careful whenever I'm talking with members of the public about this kind of thing, because I'm not a formal tax advisor, I'm not a formal financial advisor, I'm not regulated, I'm not qualified to give those kind of financial advice. So anytime anyone, if you email me right now and ask, what's the best thing to buy in gold and silver, I'll be just like, unfortunately, I can't tell you, because realistically, you have to make up that own decision on your own, because the world is very different to different people. And unfortunately, it's just different. But anyway, this gentleman was asking about the possibility of not paying capital gains tax on this. And I just immediately just put my head in my hands and was like, oh my God. Why would you? It's not. You're not going to get away with it. You're just not. And even like hypothetically, let's say you have a bunch of gold, and you go and find that random guy in the pub who's going to buy your gold off you and give you cash for it. Let's say you have a lot of it, and you get £100,000 or dollars in cash. What are you going to do with it? You're going to stick it in a bank. If you stick it in a bank, your bottom dollar is going to be questioned by the bank as to what that money is, where's it come from, and you're probably going to get reported to HMRC or the IRS for money laundering or money laundering checks and things like that. And then they'll ask you, can you account for that? Where did you buy it? How did you get the money? Can you prove your wealth? That kind of thing. I've had banks and institutions, my share platform has asked me to provide proof of my wealth. And I've had to provide proof of my earnings as a self-employed, humble YouTuber for the last couple of years, and various other bits about monies that we've got. And it's intrusive, and that's the thing. It's going to come and it's going to happen to you. And the notion that people will use the phrase, I've lost all my gold and silver in an unfortunate boating accident, is just laughable, because unfortunately there are three things certain in life: birth, death and taxes, and they will get you for it. They will. So can you realistically use this stuff in the future? And I remember a conversation I had with an accountant friend of mine a while back, who used to be an accountant for a business that basically dealt almost exclusively in cash. It was basically a cash business. And the stories this accountant friend of mine told was hilarious, where there was an audit that happened from HMRC of this business, and the guy, was answering questions and basically had a boatload of cash, and they were asking, why have you got a boatload of cash? He said, I can't put it in the bank. Bank calls me a money launderer if I do, and the bank doesn't like it. So I have all this cash, but he's like, the business can't spend the cash. And I would imagine there are certain other things going on with that business, but I can't possibly speculate. But they were saying they can't spend the cash these days in this modern world, because no other businesses out there will take cash for this. And you go out there and you try and buy some supplies for your business, you have to buy it through bank transfer or card payments. So if you've got a cash-based business, and we've seen different banks all around the world starting to close people's banks because they deal with cash a lot, and that's something that is a worry. The next step might be for businesses or individuals that have lots of gold and silver. And you know what it's like. I've done many a video on this channel about banks and the issues that we have with banks when it comes to payments for gold and silver or buying coins. And it's just really quite scary how that's going to be. So will this stuff replace cash? Can you keep off the radar using gold and silver? There's going to be a time when, I reckon you could probably just about keep off the radar for a while. Looking for a few Morgan dollars. There are meant to be a few in this box, but I can't see them. You could probably stay off the radar for a couple of months, weeks, years. There's a Morgan. But eventually you might come unstuck. And if you do, and you've been not doing things correctly from a tax perspective, you could get really, really in trouble. And I'm certainly not advocating that anybody, play the system and try and not pay their dues. I have another good adage from the same accountant friend of mine. If you have capital gains tax to pay, then you're done all right, because you've made money. So don't worry about the taxes on that side of things. I've had coins, and there are coins here that I've got. This 50 Soles coin, for example. In fact, all of this stuff on the table, with the exception of these two coins here, are capital gains taxable. So at some point, when I sell all of this, I'm going to have to account for it. Now, this was all from a giant batch of coinage that I bought from the European Mint all a long time ago. It's those big bags, with the exception of like some of these 50 or these 1968 Olympic coins and the Maria Thalers. I've got little records of those elsewhere as well. But an example is of this. I know what my price per kilo was. We bought a bunch of them. We bought a big 10 kilo bag, I think, of it back in the day. I have sold some of it over the years. I've been trying to trim it down each year using my capital gains tax allowance. But for example, when we get to the other end of the lifespan of these coins, I'm going to have to pay some taxes on them. And that's just life. Can I go down to the shops and buy stuff with these silver quarters? No, I cannot. And that's just part of life, unfortunately, in the world that we live in now. So don't rely on silver and gold replacing this stuff. I mean, I haven't even I got this specifically out to talk about like an apocalyptic scenario. So another one of the sort of big scenarios is people talk about and think about if currencies collapse, and they'll be able to use gold and silver in that scenario. Now, I've talked in one of my most popular videos of all time is talked about like the Venezuelan bolivar, not Bolivia, which I called the currency, much to my eternal shame when on a video that's got 350,000 views. But the currency, I can't believe I did that. I got so many comments going, this guy doesn't know anything, can't even say the right name of the currency. Anyway, I did a video about that and how, yeah, like gold will transport your wealth through a crisis, but if you have a bunch of gold on you and there's shit hitting the fan, that's a liability more than anything else, in my opinion. Can you use silver in that scenario? Yeah, you can, but I mean, this treasure chest box here, I can't even tell you what it weighed. It's going to be numerous kilos, and we've got kilos of silver here. All of the silver out here on the table is dwarfed into insignificance compared with the value of even just one gold coin. So is it practical? No, you can't just go out and, buy a plane ticket with a boatload of silver. That's just not going to work. Again, even in a financial crash and crisis, getting the bare necessities, people don't want this stuff. They don't need this stuff. They would rather, there are exceptions, and I will grant you can use it in certain scenarios, but generally speaking, the medium of trade is not going to be gold and silver. It's going to be something else. If, like we saw in the Venezuelan situation, when the bolivar collapsed, the US dollar becomes that reserve currency. Now, if the US dollar collapses, which currency in this world becomes the reserve currency? Bitcoin? Maybe? Another digital thing? Maybe? The pound? The euro? The yen? I don't know. Is the dollar too big to fail? You're damn right it is, and I don't think the dollar will ever fail. It will maybe be devalued to the point where it's now a new form of the dollar, but it'll all still be there because there's far too much to lose and far too much institutional wealth and generational institutional wealth from countries to lose. So don't rely on it, and don't go and buy it because you think you can avoid taxes, or you think you can avoid the system or the banks or the questioning nature of banking. Because let me tell you, if you have a boatload of gold and silver and you haven't kept your records properly and you go and sell a bunch and you get £100,000 suddenly appear in your bank account one day, you might not get questioned immediately, but if you use that money to go and buy a house, or if you use that money to go and, buy a car on finance, you're going to get questioned about the source of funds. And if you can't tell your bank where that source of funds are, and I'm speaking from experience of having been wealth checked before, you're going to get in trouble and you're going to have your money frozen. Possibly worse, possibly referred to HMRC, investigated, audited. The IRS will come knock down your door, and so funny when you hear all these Americans. I love you all in America. You're wonderful for the entertainment factor, but I'm going to put on my worst American accent here. You're all not going to take my silver. It's going to be over my dead body, and I'll shoot my way out. No, I mean, honestly, really? Anyway, look, rant over. I'm sorry, it's not meant to be a ranty video, but there are a lot of people in this world that feel that way, and a lot of those people are in the world of gold and silver. And there is a contrarian view to it that I hopefully have just portrayed to you all about it. So if you are watching because you've gone out and you've seen videos talking about moonshots for silver and gold and beating the system and what you need to have to be safe in this modern world, and you've watched this, then hopefully it's given you some context. And I don't begrudge you if you go out and you make those decisions having watched both sides of the argument. It's not for everyone, it's not for me, and I know it's not for a lot of other people, but there are some that really enjoy that kind of thing. So fill your boots, fill your basements with gold, silver and bullets for all I care. But anyway, that seems about enough ranty rambles for me about this subject. I hope it's been of interest. I hope maybe the goal here is that we have provided that contrarian view for a few people out there who maybe have seen it. If you know people who've gone down rabbit holes of gold and silver that are seemingly swamped about this rhetoric and you're worried about them, then maybe show them my video, maybe show them some other resources of like-minded and down-to-earth content creators. There are a lot of us out there, but there are also a lot of hype merchants and hype mongers that will forever want you to part with your money for those shiny things. So anyway, there we have my precious metal ramble. For the Cool Kids Club, I've got a special one for you. I've got here written on a little jiffy bag what the weight is in gold ounces troy of this little baggie of gold. It's going to be very difficult for you to guess it, but what are we going to do? Well, I've written it on in 4 decimal points, so I suppose I should put it in 4 decimal points. And I'll give you a clue. It's 1 point something. There is 1 point something number of decimal point, 1 point something ounces troy of gold here in 4 decimal points. So for example, and this is not the right answer, 1.4395, so 4 decimal points like that. That's not the answer. Have a guess. The first person to guess it right, I'll pin your comment. And if you have guessed, even if you haven't got it right, I'll know that you're cool and we'll enter you one day into the Cool Kids Club draw for 100,000 subs. Subscribe if you're not. See you on the next video. As always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.